I can't resist thinking about Art Rosenfeld's presentation, because a lot of us have now experienced the computer revolution for the last 50 years, half a century. In the beginning, our first analysis was done on an IBM 650, which was made for business. It didn't use binary computations, it used bases of 2 and 5 instead, because that fits into dollars. So it was quite an accomplishment. These types of computers had IBM cards input and IBM cards output. If you wanted to see something, you had to print the IBM cards. It was really a nightmare. And this was shortly followed by the first electronic computers, which were huge banks of glowing vacuum tubes in air-conditioned rooms. It's hard to imagine these instruments now, because an instrument of that power would fit into your shirt pocket. It's just amazing. But thank you, Art, for bringing this forward. And I just want to talk now about Alvarez, Humphrey, and the company and so forth. There's a tremendous difference between the goals of someone in industry and in academia. In industry, each participant in a company is expected to generate some amount of money. At one time, it was about $100,000 per employee that was expected to be money coming into the organization. And ironically, it turned out at about the time of those sort of figures, that was the kind of money that was going out into R&D sites for the work that they were doing there. So one case it's in, one case it's out. And you have to take that into account. In addition, the whole philosophy was quite different in terms of how you would treat employees. You don't have tenure when you're an industrial company, and so on. There's lots of differences. And Louis Alvarez had contacts in both the industrial world and the academic world, and he understood the differences and the problems, and that's kind of the subject that I'm going to expand on. I was in the particle physics Alvarez group as a graduate student and beyond, and at one point, Professor Alvarez, who we frequently discuss things of various natures, he mentioned the possibility that maybe I should pick which route do you want to take, academia or the outside world, so to speak, the industrial world. And at that time, I felt very much like I'd like to participate in the industrial approach, because for one thing, I felt as one person, I could make more of a contribution to this industrial approach to technology than being a member of a very large group. I felt I was too diluted in a sense. And so we decided to produce a company in Berkeley. I got that backwards. Produced a company in Oakland, which was a little storefront operation on Grand Avenue, and we had a business plan that constituted basically R&D, making some models that were working models that showed whatever our creation was worked, and then going the route of licensing a company to manufacture the product. One of the bonuses of working with Louis Alvarez in this stage was his strong contacts with important industrialists throughout the United States. For instance, Dinland of Polaroid and Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard at Hewlett-Packard, and I had the benefit of personal contacts with these industrial leaders, which I really appreciated and would not have been available in any other way. I had one-to-one conferences with these people in their offices, and in fact, in some cases, Bill Hewlett he had a very interesting office. He had naturally a little HP desk calculator, and more of a mini computer than anything else. But we would discuss something, and then one day he gave me a graph showing the performance of a device which I described to him, and I thought that was really spectacular, that a man worth that many thousands of dollars per minute would take time out to explore this idea and plot it out for me and then send it over to me, and it's still in my notebook somewhere. But these were very rewarding contacts to me. The first products which we decided to try exploiting were optical product called a variable focus lens, which was two optical elements which, when shifted across each other, would produce spherical power in a continuous fashion from a window pane, no power whatsoever, to either positive or negative spheres. And the applications there were numerous that we could think of, but it was kind of hard to actually get the implementation of these devices into the products that we were interested in. It was hard because when you would take a product like this to a company, like one of the ideas was to make eyeglasses in which, by either pushing a little knob or something on the eyeglasses, they would go from distance vision to reading distance, and it would be more convenient. But we went to American Optical, and the kind of reaction you'd get would be something like this. We would go in, they'd have a large group of marketing people come in and discuss the idea, and the general conclusion of the marketing people was, we've never had any request for an object that would do that. They don't want to upset their world. But we decided that after a while, there were other problems with the idea, the business plan of licensing. One is, when you're licensing a large company and there's a cutback and times get tough, where do they start cutting back on? They start cutting back on the out of the company business interests. In other words, licensed technology, because they want to preserve their own technology. So we eventually decided that we would have to go to essentially a full company. In other words, one that could not only invent and produce, but would even be able to sell the product. And we had developed several types of technologies. One of them was the variable focus lens, which I've just mentioned. Another one was stabilized optics. There were numerous ways that we found to take images which would normally be hard to visualize because of the environment, like looking out of a helicopter with a pair of binoculars, which was pretty much useless unless you could stabilize them, or on a ship or what have you. And we did, in fact, license that technology to a company and made several kinds of stabilized optical devices. One of them was very popular in a sense. It was high price, but it was popular where it was needed. And that was a 10 and 20 power binocular, which could be used in very difficult environments. We sold this to people with special needs, like helicopter observers, and this was also a development that was occurring about the time of the Israeli-Egyptian conflict. And there was a Suez Canal, and Egyptians on one side and Israelis on the other, looking at each other all the time. It was an uneasy peace. And on the Israeli side, they were using our 10 and 20 power stabilized binoculars to see what was going on. We got one of them back under warranty with a bullet hole through it. We did honor the warranty. We repaired it and returned it. But that's stretching it a little bit. We had the way the companies operated when we were in this early stage at Grand Avenue and in Berkeley. Oh, 10 more minutes left? I'll get going real fast. Was that we would talk personally. We would have lunches together. All the people that were involved in the company, or later on the heads of the company, departments would get together and have regular lunches, and it was all person-to-person contacts, which was great. We went from our Berkeley facility to one that was in San Leandro, and there a sudden change took place because we were actually making an instrument for ophthalmic use. We found out that as expert as ophthalmologists and optometrists are, they are working under handicap because they have to analyze defects in vision in terms of spheres and cylinders. That's the way you manufacture glasses. But it turns out that that's a very insensitive way of detecting the aberrations in the eye. We discovered that by analyzing vision with spheres and cross cylinders of two types, you could get the three numbers you need to make a pair of glasses, but with exquisite sensitivity, perhaps 10 times as sensitive as the spheres and cylinders, because cylinders for low power, you have to make huge changes in the rotation of the lenses to make any effect in the image. Whereas for higher powers, a very small change in the rotation would have a large effect. And using cross cylinders, everything was made linear. In other words, it didn't matter what the size of the correction, the sensitivity was always the same. So we had devised an instrument which used the variable focus lenses and what later was developed as a variable astigmatism lens in an instrument that was like magic. You could refract the patient at a distance. In other words, the patient would sit here with nothing in front of his face. He'd look across the room at a target. The target would be blurry if he'd taken his glasses off, and then the operator could turn a couple knobs, and suddenly this distant target would become very clear. It was hard to imagine. Or you could wear glasses and do the same thing and make a correction to the glasses, which would be a small refractive effect. And in addition, we had capabilities for examining the eye remotely. In other words, not only could you correct the vision of the patient with nothing in front of his eyes, but you could look through an attachment the doctor had and look into this person's eye and look at his retina, see what he was seeing, and then turn your knobs again and sharpen it up right on his retina. It was quite a device. We thought it was a real winner, but it had some problems. It was expensive, and our best customers were in fact in Japan, because there the magic of it and the fact that it had a computer in it made it something you'd advertise in a department store. They'd have huge banners, automated refraction or computerized refraction, things of this sort that would bring in the customers, and so they would keep buying these machines to build their business. But that was not a good basis for a revolution in the refracting industry, because we had to deal with practitioners who had been serving their subjects successfully for 20 years and ask them, do you want to put down $20,000 for this new instrument? And there's some reluctance to do that. And also it was an educational process, because the refracting procedure, even though it was more precise, was of interest. It required reteaching the practitioner. And so that one was sort of marginal, and we had to depend on development of other products for this marketplace, which we've identified. And in fact, they often say it's the second product that really makes a company, not the first one. If you've done well with the first one, you've got to follow it on with something else. But the vision analyzer, as we'd called it, was so spectacular that it got us noticed in the industry. And so the second product was easier to introduce. The second product was something where we took into account what the practitioner needed, not the magic of it. And that happened to be that when the technicians, when they take your glasses, they measure what you come in with. And there were often mistakes made by the technician in doing this. So we devised what is called an automatic lens meter, one that automatically analyzes the lenses and prints out the result to give to the doctor. And the doctor is freed from having a question about what they're starting with and having to go back and repeat the measurement himself. He could just depend upon this. And we developed other automated devices for refracting the eye, determining what its refractive errors are, measuring the shape of the cornea. And one of our more popular ones was a field tester, an object which presented stimulus at different points in the field of view to establish diseases of the eye, or their presence or absence. And these became very popular throughout the world. In fact, we ended up with a worldwide marketing organization with main offices in Germany, Japan, and of course in the United States. And it became a real industry. As a matter of fact, it became quite noticeable to other companies who were interested not only in the technology I've just described, but other developments which we'd built, like lenses that don't have reflection off of their back that interferes with the examinations, reflex-free lenses, so to speak. And these are important for things like fundus cameras and things of that sort, where you're shooting a bright light into the eye to illuminate the eye, but you don't want that light to be coming off the lens of the instrument. You want it to be coming only off of the retina in terms of what you look at. And so this caught the attention of Zeiss, which was the last of several acquisitions of the company in the process of selling it. And this moved us from San Leandro to Dublin, where the present Zeiss company is located. And I think that pretty much brings the history up to date. I would say that it's a risky business. We skirted bankruptcy very closely on a couple of occasions, as some of the people here will know. And we had very loyal employees, had loyal backers. This was done in the period of the 70s, mid-70s, where venture capital didn't venture capital. We had to have novel ways of financing the company. And all in all, it was quite an experience. But looking back on it, I have good feelings. One is that all the private investors which helped support our development and the growth of the company all benefited from profitable transactions, which would not have been available to them ordinarily. And we've contributed greatly to in terms of the fact that a lot of our products were sold in other countries, to the balance of payments. That was very favorable, and we created hundreds of jobs. So I look at it as a success and quite a challenge. Thank you.